Hey folks, this is Mike, and this is the Michael Rollins Show. I am bringing back Benoit Finck for one more episode because really, honestly, we did not get to finish. We got cut off in the middle of our interview. And so I wanted to bring him back for one extra segment on FPV culture in France. And it turns out that the FPV culture in France is very rich and very good. Benoit talks about many things about the FPV culture in France, but one of the things he talks about is, did you know that there is a distinct form of freestyle in France? And you don't see much of it in the rest of the world, but it's very, very noticeable in France. And I've actually watched some of it. It's very good. Did you know that one of the best freestylers in the world lives in France? He just doesn't have as much exposure because there is, to a degree, a language gap. Benoit talks about this and many other things. He's very passionate about the French culture, and he has a right to be passionate about the French culture. I'm going to release this segment along with another piece of interview that we did where he talks more about what it's like to be on a film set as a bonus to the podcast tier on my Patreon. So in case you didn't know, I now have a Patreon. You can find the link below. And there's a $3 podcast tier where I release all of my interviews to podcasts. The great thing about these interviews on podcast form is that I'm not restrained to cutting them up into small pieces. It's all one thing, and a lot of times the extra things I cut out go into the podcast. So like, subscribe, comment, sign up for the Patreon if you're interested in that $3 podcast tier, and I hope that you guys really enjoy this episode. Bye. So by way of explanation, why we're both wearing different shirts and everything else, we actually had a power cut yesterday at my house, which totally blew up all of our filming. So we're back on today. And so Benoit, let me ask you a question. Talk to me about the French FPV community, because we were just getting into it before we had the power cut, and it sounds like there's a lot going on there. I'd like to hear more about it.
All right, so yeah, I mean, it's a subject that is very dear to my heart because I mean, that's the whole reason basically why I started the vlog. Basically, I started the vlog out of feeling like I wanted to feature the people, the talent, the places that we had in France, because I realized that there was a problem with our community, which was that it was maybe not getting the proper recognition that it should internationally, because mainly of the language barrier. And I thought, well, I can speak English, so maybe that would be a way to uniquely feature the whole community and kind of everything that we have around here. And that's how I started. And honestly, like, if you don't know the French FPV community, you should check everyone out. Like, we've got a lot of great pilots. We've got big classics like Tomz FPV and Red. These are the most internationally known pilots that we have, I think. And then we have J True FPV. That is, to me,
he's amazing.
Yeah, one of the main, probably the best freestyle FPV pilot in the world right now. He's so technical. He is amazing. I honestly don't see anyone that can beat him. Freestyle and technically, he's just incredible. And I fly with him very often, and it's always almost like kind of, when you fly with someone that is too good, it almost feels like demotivating. You're always like, okay, well, what am I gonna do now? Right. That's kind of how I feel with him sometimes. It's funny, but beyond that, it's a very active community. I don't know how the cut is going to work between what we said before and what we said now. But basically, FPV drone is, if you search FPV drone on Google Trends, the first country that comes in is France. So it really shows, and it's, a part of FPV started in France in the forest with Ergonet, that Star Wars forrest video that a lot of people saw and decided to go for FPV based on that, which is like amazing on its own. But yeah, we have a very active also racing community, even if we have little like issues on that because there's a lot of debate about the rules and everything, as French would like have, French people would have. But yeah, it's truly and we've got also a lot of great places to fly. So yeah, it's truly something that I like to feature and talk about.
That's awesome. What do you think is the thing that makes the French community unique in FPV?
Well, I think first it's super dynamic. We've got our own basically rotor riot that's called Culture FPV, but it's not made by one group. It's made by pretty much everyone. It's a group of people. There's a core group, and then that basically just do the reviews, do like different things like a blog would do, and then they feature most of the community. They have their own podcast, their own Facebook group, and it just creates a lot of dynamic around it. And beyond that, there's a lot of, I mean, each region, each area has a lot of like little groups, and it's easy for us to go and see one another, because I mean, the longest drive you would do is probably 8 to 10 hours to cross the whole country. So it's something doable, like compared to, for example, where sometimes if you just want to go to a cool spot, you drive for 3 hours. Okay. When I was in LA, that's what I did to go to Dolores Park, and everyone felt like it was a nearby spot somehow. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a U.S. driving culture right there, man. People around here love to drive. I hate driving, but that's beside the point.
For us, it's like if we drive 1 hour, it's a long drive to go fly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's very different in that way, and I think also misconception for the French FPV community is that in the US there's so many spots, so many places to fly, and when I speak to people from the US, they think, you're so lucky in France, you've got so many places very close to each other, and I think it's more true that way than it is the other, actually. That's
good. Yeah, I have not flown in an incredibly diverse region. I've actually flown mainly here in the Hampton Roads. But what is it like to be able to go to, epic locations and fly?
It's really nice. But it's something that you have to kind of chase, I think. Like when I started, no one around Paris, I mean, people were, but not really that much, flying bendos, and then I realized, well, I mean, there must be a lot of bendos because we are in a region that's constantly developing and changing. So I started looking for them, and then we discovered so many. But it's something that, and then I didn't have the time to search for more bendos because I was traveling, and I started doing a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's something that you have to chase, otherwise, and like take the time for. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen on its own, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I can totally see that. Now, what do you think has been, like, you mentioned the Star Wars video, like, are there any uniquely French contributions to FPV?
I think, there's the style that, for example, Tomz developed, the way that you will fly in a bando without doing a lot of tricks, but hitting like all the gaps and in a line. Or Red also, like at the same time, Red and Tom started doing that, and then I started later on with that kind of style as well. And that is, to me, a really like big contribution from the French community, which is that we would look for lines in like very fluid type of freestyle. Then beyond that, I'm sorry, like right now, like out of the out of the right out of the bat like that. But I know that there are some others, but yeah,
That's all
right
right.
off
That's
the
all right.
bat like that, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. It's what do you like when you go? Because you've flown all over the world, right?
Not all over the world. There's so
Well,
many
I mean,
places that I'd like to fly. I've flown a little bit in the US. I've flown a little bit in Asia when I was in India with my wife. I flew um, a lot of places in Europe as well. But there's still so many. I'm barely scratching the surface right now.
well, what I was going to ask about is like, how do you how do you see the cultures differ? Like, if like the U.S. culture versus the French culture versus the Asian culture. Like, did you get to fly with other folks in Asia or India?
I did. I mean, I did not fly with in India. I didn't fly with people over there, but I wrote to them and we shared quite a lot of messages because we were supposed to meet. In the US, I got to fly with a few people as well. Well, in the US, you guys smoke a lot more weed than we do in
You know what?
France.
I did not know this. I did not know this. I mean, I'm kind of a solo island man on an island over here. I don't get to fly with other people very often, and so I don't know. I think you probably saw the Zorro interview.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. Yeah,
where I was just like, what do you mean, like all the weed? Like, really? And God, that was surprising. That was funny.
yeah. But yeah, like it's not much stoner thing in France. More of a thing that people started doing out of passion for just RC. Obviously, there's like some smokers as well, but it's not like as much in the starter kit as in the US.
Right. Well, and I will say,
so
I've talked to a few people, and some people are like, "Oh hell yeah, man!" Like, I don't know how you missed this memo, but then other people are like, "Yeah, I never fly high." So it's a very interesting take on it. It's either yes all the way or no 100%. So
it's super polarizing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It's funny. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, I think it's pretty much the same everywhere. What I've seen is everyone is very driven by the passion and is ready to sacrifice so much for this hobby and do so much for it, going the extra mile, pushing themselves, and I think that's pretty universal in a way, and that's part of what is universal is what makes FPV a culture on its own almost.
Yeah, that's probably very true. So anything else you'd like to say about the French community, or?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay, good. I really, one of the things I want to bring out is different communities in general. And so that's why I've tried to talk to as many people as I could. You know, I was talking to Sander, we didn't talk necessarily about the Dutch community. But it definitely, I think there's a lot to be learned between communities.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you said, like I did not know that there was a distinct French, freestyle. Yeah. Which is, I want to go look for that. I want you to share some links with me after we're done. So that is it. That is the end of Benoit's run on the Michael Rollins Show. And I'd like to thank Benoit because he was truly an inspiring and awesome guest. I hope that he and I can keep in contact very frequently beyond just our interview, because quite honestly, the guy is awesome and I would like to one day consider him a personal friend. I hope that you all enjoyed this, and I hope that you guys continue to watch. The next one that we see should be pretty interesting. Talk to you soon. Bye.